Aloha. Greetings from Maui. This is Love Coach Scott Katamas with my beloved partner in Straight Talk, Trish Wright, and our special guest, Ann Rodgers. And welcome. I want to welcome all of our friends. Definitely want to welcome those of you that are in our Zoom room coming on in. I see a lot of our friends are joining us, so welcome. This is the very last episode of Straight Talk, but don't be sad or blue. We will be back every Friday night in the new year under a new title, under the title of The Awakening World. And this has been very much inspired by my partner, Trish, who I'm going to put the spotlight on.
I'm so excited that we're changing the name of Straight Talk, Scott. As some of you who follow my work and who follow Scott and I, and you know that I'm everything but straight, and in all senses of that word, and that there's a lot of experience in the world that is kind of not falling into the straight department. Like, always forward, never straight. Just saying.
Beautiful. Yeah, so we're really excited. We are going to take the next 2 Friday nights off because it's Christmas Eve and then New Year's Eve. But we will be back on Friday night, January 6th with The Awakening World. And we're also changing the title of Saturday Night Live to The Awakening World. So in other words, what we're going to be doing is on Friday nights and Saturday nights, it'll be The Awakening World, Friday edition, Saturday edition, always dealing with the same topic of the weekend. So it's kind of a new format. Really excited to be working with Trish, as always. And welcome to our friends. Want to definitely invite our friends to let us know where they're from. Hello, Nancy. Hello, Eleanor, Mark, Kathy, Frode, Eleanor Joy, you're back. Denise, Carol, and all of our friends that are joining us. Percy, as always, let us know where you're from geographically. And this is going to be one of those shows that we really would love your interaction, your questions. I think my favorite part of the show is when we do interact with our audience. And we've got a wonderful friend of mine, longtime friend of mine, Ann Rodgers. And here is Ann. And Ann is with us live in the flesh.
Hello.
And we also are going to be hearing from my friend TJ Woodward. And I recorded with TJ some really wonderful content. And so the whole topic is, look, we're entering the holiday season, which can really trigger people. It could be a wonderful time and it could be a really hard time. And we're getting ready for the new year. So tonight we're going to really have straight talk about how we can make happy, healthy choices. And so I'm going to start with just kind of an opening thought from each of us. I'll go first, then Trish, then Ann. Then I'm going to show a little bit of my video interview with TJ Woodward. And we're going to kind of go back and forth between video with TJ and then live with all of you and us. And yeah, what does the holiday season mean for you? Is it an exciting time or is it a hard time? You know, some people are excited to be with family. Some people are dreading being with their family, and some people don't have family. And I recognize that those are all very real realities for some of us. And it's a time that we sometimes are especially tempted to overindulge. Maybe it's overindulging in sugar or food. And sometimes it might be overindulging in alcohol. And sometimes it might be overindulging in other substances. We might be around people that are like, have more pie, have another drink, right? And again, that's a very real challenge. I know I've gone through it. And so we're going to talk about that part of it. And we're also going to talk about, okay, what are some ways of managing the overindulging part? We're also going to talk about, this is a time to change patterns, to change behaviors. And we're really blessed to have Annie with us because she has got an incredible, really powerful, amazing way to dramatically change behaviors that many of us may want to change. Or you may have friends that are wanting to change some of their relationship, especially to drugs and alcohol. So we're going to hear about Annie from that. But let me turn it over to my partner, Trish, and then we'll turn it over to Anne. Hey, Trish.
Hi. Yeah, gosh, the last time we had Annie on, I don't remember who was with us. Well, regardless, Annie was sharing a lot about NAD, and she sent us some of these patches that really helped detox from alcohol or drugs or whatever. And she sent them specifically to me for my ADHD and my anxiety. It helped. I got lost. I fell off the pattern there. But it's what I wanted to bring up about this show specifically is that as we crest into the new year, I mean, this last year was tough, to say the least. Anybody else have a tough year in the 2021? Anyone else have a 2020 that was tough? So we're coming out of this 2 years of places where we've either coped using a bunch of things, whether they were quote unquote healthy or not. And some of us, I don't know about you, but some of us are looking at the patterns of our families or our own patterns and wanting to make changes in a more loving or self-loving or compassionate direction. And that's what I see in this conversation is how it's going to evolve. Is we are here with two addiction specialists, two recovery specialists. And what I would love to talk about is a little bit of how so what happens. So here we are, we're sitting with our families. So-and-so, auntie so-and-so has she's the alcoholic in the family and she's going to say some shit. She's going to say some shshit. And then you get your mom who's like, oh, I'm, codependent and doing her thing. And then you got dad who's angry, and just generalizing and stereotyping right over here. But it's you have all these things and then you're sitting here oh my God, I'm going to drink alcohol now, even though I haven't drank for, I know I just chattering away, but it's there's these moments that we start to, I want to talk about how we start to look at our patterns, how we start to find the discomfort in our family units, and then what we do to help us through these really fucking hard moments of being with the family and also being with our own stuff. So I know that I get the feeling TJ is going to have some stuff on that. And I get the feeling you're going to have some stuff about, clientele. How did they get there? How do you deal with all of the stuff that's coming up?
The thing that is amazing to me is that substances are like friendships. We hug them and we depend on them, and we that drink, it's like we form a relationship with that. And I think because of the chemistry in our body, it feeds the candida, it feeds fungus, it feeds life forms in our body. And the life forms say, I want that drink, I want that sugar, I want that opiate, I want whatever it is, And there's something about breaking that relationship emotionally with your heart, as well as what we can do to rapidly disconnect physically. So we found a method to rapidly stop the withdrawals if you stop, using the substance of choice. And so that is a kind of a miracle to me, because when our bodies, the energy in our body is run on something called NAD. NAD is one of the most miraculous discoveries of the century, and it's all over the internet for anti-aging and reversing aging. And the study where Harvard did a study with mice and they gave them intravenous NAD and they reversed in 6 days from 2 years old to 6 months old, their tissue. They became the appearance of a young mouse. Well, this happens in our brain. And so what I found is that when we're in this season and all of a sudden those voices are speaking to us, a craving is the number one thing that's keeping us from being the person we want to be, from making the changes we want to make. And if we can address craving and then set it up in a way that's going to be successful, like having sober people around you or having a companion that will stay with you till you get over the hill, then you have no desire for the stuff anymore. Right? So breaking that habit, sometimes it's an emotional thing, it's a spiritual thing, and also it's a physiological thing. So this neat development that I discovered incidentally. I heard about this treatment in Mexico over 11 years ago, about 2002. And I knew that all the luminaries from Hollywood were coming to get detox down there. And I just wanted to use it for my brain, but it was too expensive. And then 11 years ago, I brought it over from Mexico, this IV NAD, and watched miracles happen one after the other. People who have been using heroin for 6 years, 10 years, just stop immediately. And all of a sudden have the craving go down. And so the one thing is that that's just the beginning. And that's where people like TJ take over, because now you have to do personal growth. Just because we get you out of jail, I have the get out of jail card. I have a really good get out of jail card. But without the personal growth, without the spiritual growth, without the emotional evolution, there's a tendency to use the addiction to satisfy something that hasn't been resolved yet. But with this cool thing called NAD, which people are doing injections, they're doing nasal spray, they're doing patches, they're doing all kinds of different things. We just happen to find a way to do the IV with a new kind of NAD that you just stick it on your body. You just squirt the NAD right on the patch, and you attach it to your body. And you do that with a high enough dose, and you can get out of anything: fentanyl, alcohol, benzos, you name it. So this is a really important thing to know, because if you have people in your life who really are in jail, going to rehab, their physiology doesn't change. Even if they get some personal growth, their body will come right back with cravings. And so they're going to be right back where they were before. So if you can do it in a proper way where you have love and support, and you stop the using of the substance completely for a minimum of 10 days. In other words, if you can get to that place, then something else kicks in that's really neat. And now you change that relationship with that friend, that cozy drink, that cozy pill, or that high that you get when you feel uncomfortable. And obviously at Christmas time is trigger time. And I know for me, being more of a 70s person, Christmas meant party time. Christmas is where we all go smoke some weed and go out in the car and we drive around and this and woo-hoo-hoo. So you may not even use all year long, but when Christmas comes around, it's time to party, right? It's like let down your hair time, or on vacation. Well, I think all of us are evolving to a place now where we realize that there's more responsibility as spiritual beings for us to really address who we are, and what our life is and what its own purpose. But if we're physically hung up on something, this is a really cool technique to pop you out of it. And what I notice is people who don't have any issues, they don't have any inflammation, no chronic illness, no brain fog, no depression, no anxiety, they may not feel anything from NAD. They may have plenty of NAD working in their body. It repairs your DNA is what NAD does in your mitochondria. So if someone, it's that one piece that they need, which is to stop the craving of addiction, this is an amazing tool that they can use to get there. So that's what I wanted to share about that. It's really good news, because people go to rehab and the success rate is pretty low. And why is it low? Probably because their physiology hasn't changed. And unless we can rebuild that brain, we can't really get there. And the new year is like the time we're the most busy, because it's a moment where that marks a new phase. So if people want to stop the old habits, this is a great time to do it. Probably not, you have to pick your time when you're ready to do it. Either you're going to go into the new year sober, or you're going to start day one sober of the new year, right? But if you want to quit, then this is an amazing technique to take the withdrawals away and to take the craving away. So that's what I wanted to share about this neat tool that we have.
I want to say I've been using it, and it's true. To be honest, during the pandemic time, I've been working really hard, 12 to 15 hours a day, often 7 days a week. And so I had fallen into a habit of my treat at the end of, working my butt off would be to have a really nice dinner and have alcohol. And I had fallen into that trap. And Annie got me on her patches, And it really is true. The craving. Now, I'll be honest, there still is this psychological pleasure memory. Like I can remember in my mind, if I think about drinking, I can still have a mental pleasure memory, but the physical, oh, I'm really wanting a drink, gone, completely gone. And so, and the patches are great and they're easy. And I only, by the way, I use one patch a week. I don't, it's not like I need it every day. I think at first I did it every other day, if I recall correctly.
Or every day. When you first start, you do it consecutive. It's like
You
get
do
the
it
engine
consecutive
going, and then
days,
you
right?
back off and do it as needed. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, exactly. You know what? While we're with you, let's just go ahead and take a look at the website. And somebody had asked, what is NAD? So I copied that and put it into the chat box. But tell us a little bit more. This is the website where you can get all the information, and it's nadconcierge.com. nadconcierge.com. So I know that before we went on air, you were showing us this chart. So I'm pulling it up. What's this? Tell us a little bit about what we're looking at, Anne.
So this is a study done with someone full-blown alcohol addiction and opiate addiction. These are opiate and alcoholics. I think it's 30, it was 30 each, 30 patients each. And this is their craving from 0 to 10 on day one. For opiates is the purple one and alcohol is the green one. This is their craving on day 5, and this is their craving on day 10. Now this is consecutive days. And at this point it was doing IV NAD. Now it's very hard to pay for 10 days of 4 to 8 hour a day infusion with IV NAD. So that's why I was so excited that we found a breakthrough using fresh made frozen NAD that we thaw out per patch, and we put it on your body, and we can do the same thing. In fact, even better, because we go around the clock now. So my 2 worst alcoholics over the years who relapsed to the point of, I really thought that they might die, they haven't drank since their first patch 9 months ago, and one of them became a drug counselor, and the other one runs our house, that we have a retreat house for people who need to come and crash someplace and feel safe and feel loved and have their food made, and so that they can just, go through their process. So this is just a technique that is really useful to know, because almost everybody knows somebody who's really, really messed up, and it never should be done in isolation. It always should be done in conjunction with a program that supports them, loves them. And that's unique to each person, because everybody's different. Everybody has different resources, to support them.
So, Anne, I'm going to go back to the website for a moment. What else should we know about on this website? Like, where else do you want to direct people?
So NAD, by the way, I mean, the things that it works amazing for, because NAD is made from tryptophan or niacin, but it's naturally occurring in our body, and it is what causes the cell to produce energy, ATP production. It feeds on NAD. And our body repairs the DNA with something called NAD. So it does DNA repair. It helps with energy production. It works on hundreds of metabolic processes in the body. So it's like an enzyme. It's not like taking a supplement. It's not taking a drug. It's an enzyme that when you take it in the right quantity and dose, that's the art of it. And you can turn your engine back on. People with COVID, for instance, post-COVID with brain fog, tremendous results, 4 days in a row, and bam, their brain's back. People with neurological conditions. We have a Parkinson's patient right now. His shaking stopping. He stopped shaking. He can get in and out of the car better, more smoother. We have anybody who has an inflammatory issue in their body, chronic illness, chronic gut issues, all those kind of things. We go way down on dose to like 200 milligrams versus 2,400 milligrams for an addict, So there's an art on using NAD, but NAD is like a little God molecule that when your body is low on it, you have these things that don't have the energy to fix themselves. And we raise the energy, that intelligence in your body, and now your body can fix itself. It can retain balance. So it's really something for people who need to make a transition, who need to boost their NAD level for a short period of time over a series of days. And then in many cases, they do boosters, like once a week kind of booster, or once a month, or 2 to 3 days every couple of months, or that kind of thing. And I call it the intelligence, because everybody knows what they want. Everybody becomes their own doctor. And I love that. I love that they know exactly what they want. And that's intelligence. That's feeling your intelligence come back. And, when you're craving, I feel like we're really living off other life forms. The viruses, the fungus, the parasites in our body, they all crave the alcohol and the sugar and the opiates. They're the ones running your life, and NAD seems to bat down candida quite a bit. In fact, if you have a high dose of candida, you got to go real low and just work your way through it, Yeah.
I want to read some comments that are coming in from our audience. Mark writes, Gabor Mate says that we can become addicted to anything. I haven't had alcohol for 14 years, but Kratom, which is a tea, has subtly seduced me. Time to stop. I use it to distract myself from difficult life details. And then he writes, this sounds very helpful. And Nancy has a question.
I'd like to comment on Kratom.
Oh, okay. So comment on
ahead.
Kratom. And also Nancy has a question. Just can it be used while taking other supplements?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And the thing about Kratom, it seems so organic. We all like the organics, but if you've ever been in the trenches detoxing people, Kratom is one of the hardest things to do. One of the hardest ones we ever had was Kratom Detox. And people who get addicted to Kratom know exactly what I'm talking about. It's gnarly to detox off Kratom, it raised to the high list, like benzos and Suboxone and methadone, which are easy kind of now. I don't know about Kratom with the patches because I haven't done it yet, but almost all the addictions are become much more easy for us, Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go back to the website. So how do people are intrigued. How do they order?
Well, if you're on the website,
And hang on, I'm pulling it back up. Here we go. And sorry, I got pulled into somebody was asking a question. I was sending them. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
So they're on the website. Do they go to your contact?
No, fresh NAD patches. So there's a lot of NAD patches. We didn't bother ordering them for many years because they don't work. They don't do anything. But when this pharmacy said, I want you to try my patches, I went, you can't detox anybody with them. So yeah, sure, I'll try them. And 6 patches in, I went, I don't think I'm ever doing the IV ever again. I think I'm done with it. So we have things like this, a starter kit. You can get 6 of them, six patches. Now we're not talking about, this is like what used to be $6,000 we can do for $270. You know what I mean? The 6-day, what used to be like.
I really want people to slow down because I want people to take that in.
Yeah.
You used to have to use an IV, and you spent 10 years providing your patients. You had an entire walk-in clinic.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna go to. You had an entire walk-in clinic and your full-time job was treating people with IVs.
Yes.
And now all of that has been replaced by these patches, with both Trish and I have effectively used, which is why you're on our show, by the way.
Yeah.
So I just really want people to understand that this technology that used to be
really
limited to people who had a lot of money. Mostly, I think most of you people were Hollywood celebrities and people with money who needed to detox so they could go and shoot and not look like crap. Now all of a sudden we use these patches and it works. So I just really want people to understand that, right? Okay.
Yes, it is a Jedi approach. Yes, it used to be $12,500 in our clinic for 10 days. In our other doctor's clinic, it's $15,000 for 10 days doing IV NAD. And now we can, if it's a really serious detox, we can do it for about $2,000. If it's like an opiate fentanyl, a hard detox. Recently, just this last week, I got a call for a Hollywood person who had relapsed, and probably found 14 bottles of alcohol in the house. By the time I got there on Wednesday at 2:00, I threw patches on his body and he was like, are you an angel? He was so out of his body. You're like, are you an angel? Where did you come from? Right? I go, well, I got you covered. We got this. He was back at work on Monday doing 12-hour days and feeling great. Right. And that includes having to find a couple of hiding spots on Friday and Saturday. We still had to find a couple of spots because that's the key to NAD working, is taking all the access away. But that's amazing. That's amazing. So there's hope, is what I got to say, because this is kind of a really terrifying disease. So post-COVID, candida or chronic illness like chronic gut issues, very low dose, working with a naturopath or a chiropractor, somebody, running that program for you. Mental, like anxiety, NAD takes stress out of your body, and addiction is the highest stress you can have. It really is stressful coming off drugs. So it just takes the inflammation down. It takes the stress down. So people with anxiety, high stress, it helps with sleep, helps with any neurological brain fog, clarity, things like that. So there's low dose treatments, which are, under $500. That'll take care of a lot of issues. People feel pretty happy. And then there's the higher dose treatments. Yeah.
Okay, so this is again at nadconcierge.com. And that's where you can find out all about the ordering. You can call, you can email. And also, I just want to point out that if you go to the videos section, you've got a lot of testimonials from people and stories of people dealing with fentanyl withdrawal, alcohol withdrawal.
Yeah, Tina, wonderful Tina here. She just PTSD, and it would trigger her, and she could not stop but just run to the store when PTSD would hit her. And she hasn't had a drink since her first patch, 9 months, and so she's fabulous. She's fabulous. She runs the house down in Carlsbad. She'll take people in for, 7 days, 10 days, whatever they need to do. And the young man there, wow. I think he's turned 20 just before he came into our treatment. He was smoking the fentanyl from morning to night, and everything else in the sun truly lit the cup up. And, yeah, and he's still sober, and it's how many months now? I don't even know. That's really saying something, because fentanyl is a really hard one to stay sober off of, and he's doing great.
And thank you so much. You're going to stick around for a little bit. I want to get to TJ.
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
But you guys, this is the real deal. And this is why, Trish and I wanted to bring Ann back, because we do know that this is, on the one hand, it's a tough time of the year and a time that we're attracted to overindulging, but it's also, especially approaching the new year, a great time to really make big changes. So that's why we wanted to do this show. Trish, I'm going to put the spotlight on you. See if there's anything you want to say about Ann or this particular part of the work.
Well, I just want to bring it back to, stepping into whatever you're stepping into in the next few days, and just share a little bit about my personal experiences. Sometimes we need help staying on the path that we know is the best for us. Just in my own journey with the drugs, alcohol, and all the other addictions that I've had, which is like a lot of things, stepping out of reality because I'm uncomfortable. But sometimes you just need a little help. And if you don't have like a partnership that's supportive, or a friend that's there supporting you, that this is one of those pieces. Like, you want to go show up in your family unit, and you want to have a little piece of something that's helping you stay sober, or stay not anxious, or, feeling good. It actually gives you a lot of energy. So this is one of those pieces that can really help as an ally, as a chemical ally. And you put a patch on, and it kind of feels, you notice it throughout the day. So you're also bringing your awareness to that moment, right? It feels good to wear the patch. So yeah, if you need a little help right now, it's okay to need help. It's a tough time. It's the winter time. It's dark. and this can really help you.
And I think there might be some questions in the chat box, so maybe you can answer those a little bit. But I do want to kind of get to TJ Woodward for a few minutes. And again, TJ, honestly, he's been my coach. And he's just a lovely man. He's a really lovely man. And I'm snobby about coaches because I'm a coach and I'm a very good coach and I train other coaches. And honestly, when I've hit challenges, there are two people I go to, and one of the two that I go to is TJ. So he's written 3 books. His first book was Conscious Being. His next book was Conscious Recovery. And his new book is all about conscious creation. So anyway, we've got some really fun stuff. So let's take a look at what TJ has to say, and then we'll all be back to comment on that. Here we go.
I really appreciate that you honor me as someone who, we did get to work together coaching. And, you and I know that it's really about consciousness and holding each other. And I just appreciate that you gave me the honor of holding some space for you during a time of transition. And all of us at any moment can be the coach or the coached.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I much prefer being the coach than the coachee. It's so much easier, isn't it? Well, let's just start first of all by what does it mean to be a conscious being, and tell us a little bit about the first book and how you got started. We'll kind of go through the progression.
Perfect. Yeah, my first book came out in 2015, and it was really the culmination of me asking the question, how can I articulate the message of awakening in the most simple way? I have read some of the most phenomenal books, as many of us have, and sometimes I would read a book and I would have to reread the paragraph multiple times because they can be really dense, right? And so the intention for Conscious Being was really like you and I sitting down, having a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and having a conversation about how we awaken to our true nature. So I wrote it in a way that's really conversational, like we're just sitting down talking about these different topics. And some of the topics include living in a more compassionate way, how we look at consciously the evolution of our own consciousness, how we stay centered in an ever-changing world. So it was really a series of, it started with 12 talks that I had given, and those talks became chapters, and it became a conversation that I hope to have with people. Again, in the most simplest way to say it is, how do we awaken to our true nature and our highest possibility?
Beautiful. So what's a tip that you can give us right off the bat for that?
Well, the first thing that came to mind is I'm thinking about the chapter called Everyday Compassion, and it really is dedicated to my first spiritual teacher. You could call her my first coach, Mary Helen Brownell. She's phenomenal. And when she made her transition in 1998, I was really aware that she had helped so many people and yet had never written anything and barely ever was recorded speaking. So I wanted to be a scribe for that. So that chapter is her 7 spiritual truths. Now, she did not make a list of 7 spiritual truths, but I reflected on what are the things I heard her say most often. And the one that came to mind when you asked that question is, there's only one of us here. And I remember being, when I met her, I was 20 and I was I had come out of an addiction, and I felt really damaged and wounded. And that showed up as a lot of judgment of other people. And she would say, remember, there's only one of us here. And so my instruction was to see the other person I was having, seeming conflict with as me, and they, as me, and me as them, and really recognizing the profound, simple truth of, how do I make peace with others? There are no others. How do I forgive others? There are no others. So that's what showed up for me when you asked that question.
One of a practice that I love with that, even though we're focusing on you, I got to do my favorite practice, is when I'm having trouble accepting that other person in that way, is to think to myself, there's God fully experiencing itself as Donald Trump, as Joe Biden, as pick whoever you're challenged by. Or if you really want to go for it, there I am fully experiencing myself as this person. And to contemplate that, to reflect that.
Yeah, you know, I love that because that's exactly the practice. And it's, of course, synchronistic because it's exactly what I offer in conscious being. One practice is to look at the other person, the perceived other person, and say, isn't it interesting that I'm doing that? Right. And then becoming aware of the compassion that I can have for myself, showing up as Donald Trump or Joe Biden. Those are great examples, right? Because most of us might have an opinion about one or both of them. And when we move into a spiritual awareness that we're all perfect emanations of one source energy, that we are indeed really one frequency and one energy, life becomes completely different. We then live in a completely new way. And that's really what I mean by awakening to our true nature.
Yeah, yeah. All right, we are going to take a break to see what our audience has to say, and then we'll be right back with TJ Woodward. All right, back to you, TJ. So how did conscious being and that book and the success of that book and your own process lead to conscious recovery?
It's interesting you asked that question because it actually leads us to conscious creation, which we're going to talk about later. The reason I say that is I have learned how to trust visioning, and visioning, of course, is very different than visualization. And the reason I'm starting with that is, to tell you the truth, I did not want to write conscious recovery. I did not want to be pigeonholed as a recovery person. That was not what my mind was telling me. I had a spiritual community at the time, and I was working in the addiction treatment field, but I was trying to pivot away from the addiction work. But as I got quiet and listened, which is the practice, that voice kept coming through of conscious recovery. Write about your perspective, your experience, your point of view about addiction and recovery from a very, very different lens and a completely new way of looking at it. And I sat with that, and I sat with it for at least 6 months and ultimately yielded to it and started writing conscious recovery. And of course, it has really exploded, and it's, you know, being used at treatment programs all over the world. And it's a huge honor for me to have said yes to that inner knowing. And I start with that because, you know, in some ways, who am I to say what I'm supposed to be creating and revealing and what wants to show up, right? So it really came out of me saying yes to inner wisdom.
That's a beautiful story. Actually, I got to say, I relate a little bit. My life took a big turn when I traveled. I was making my living and had been for many years as a writer, director, producer. I traveled with Marshall Rosenberg, did some video stuff with him, and that's when I really decided I wanted to become a coach. And for a few years, I was an NVC guy because that was my orientation. And then for a number of reasons, Marshall retired and then passed away, and I didn't quite relate as much to the NVC dogma, if you will. And so I also went through a period where I really didn't want to be seen as an NVC guy, and I, really rebranded myself. And one of the beautiful things is now some people come up and go, I always loved Marshall. I didn't quite relate to NVC, but you've helped me really enjoy his work again, right? Or you've given it the spin that I needed to embrace it, And so I think it's kind of the same thing with you in conscious recovery. And I'll just name it. I think we all recognize that 12-step has been incredibly successful and a huge blessing. And God bless AA, God bless the 12-step program. Thank you, Lord, for that. And it's not for everyone. It's got wonderful parts to it, and it's been great for, I guess, millions. But there's also those that it's not for them. And so now they have conscious recovery. So I want to say that I did the conscious recovery program with TJ. I loved every part of it, even the hard parts of it, because you do it with so much love. So tell us a little bit about, from your perspective, what makes conscious recovery a different approach to changing our relationship to any substance or to any addictive or compulsive behavior.
Well, it starts with the foundational principle, which can be seen as really different than some of the other models. And I really appreciate that you paid homage to and honored 12-step. And conscious recovery can be an alternative, but it can also be a supplement, because a lot of the people that work through conscious recovery actually love 12-step, and they use both. And then, as you said, there are people who are resistant to some of the concepts in 12-step, and conscious recovery is something that they resonate with more. And that is really a bridge to talk about the first principle, and that is, underneath all addictive behavior is an essential self that is whole and perfect. And
Let's say
what
that
makes,
again.
yeah,
Let's say that again. Let's all breathe this in. This is
Yeah.
it.
underneath all addictive behavior is an essential self that is whole and perfect.
Hmm.
And the reason that this is both simple and profound is that it's really different than a lot of the therapeutic models or the, addiction support group models, because there is a tendency, I think, to look at the addiction as wrong. And in some way, whether it's conscious or not, a person who is struggling or working through an addiction as broken or damaged in some way. And a lot of the models support that. Counselors, therapists, clinicians, a lot of us, them, have been trained to diagnose and treat what's wrong with you and how do I help you heal that or fix that. It's usually more of a fix, right? In other words, there's probably, or most often, an unconscious bias that the person is damaged or broken and that I need to help them in some way. Now, to flip it and to look at, if you're someone watching right now who has been working through, or what we would perceive as struggling with an addiction, you might see yourself as broken or damaged. And so conscious recovery comes in and asks the question, what if underneath all of that, there's still a place within you that's unharmed and unharmable? And it's a really different way to look at it and to work with it.
I literally
You're muted, Scott.
Yes.
there's that cycle, the shame cycle.
Let me go back. I want to,
You
and now I've lost where the video's playing. Where is it? Where is it? Here we go. What are your thoughts about what comes up for either of you about what TJ has shared so far? You're muted, Annie.
I don't know how anybody can make it through the world without a spiritual connection, without really going and discovering that soul connection and having all the support you possibly can put together, to me, that is so key to the healing, because the rest is it's symptoms, they're just symptoms. And other than helping someone get out of a ditch, it's really helpful to have a hand or a tractor to pull you out of the ditch. But other than that, not getting back in the ditch is, now we're on a different path, spiritual path,
Yeah. Trish, any thoughts? And you're also muted, hon.
I know. I didn't say anything. I what I love about all of the work, and even bringing Gabor Mate in, is that it's holistic. There is no separation between the traumas that we have and the addictions that we have and the way that we work through them. That, there is a belief that, I'm going to totally butcher it, by the way. There is a belief that that the separation, the human separation, is what causes us to seek out external things to fulfill those needs. And in a lot of capacities, that's what I used drugs, sex, and rock and roll for, is like the discomfort within self and the seeking outside. Like I was leaning into something that I couldn't find because I didn't know how to get in. We don't live in a society that's very loving or supportive to finding stability within oneself. So, through alcohol or through other people, through codependency, through sex, through, I don't know, ecstasy or whatever else I was doing, all of it. I was just doing all of it, that it really stemmed from the places inside of me. And so I can see where the 12 steps, I don't participate with the one God conversation, but I can see how it all is an allyship, right? The NAD, but the NAD is going to work. And you also have to supplement that with therapy. You can do all of these things, and you've got to find a way to merge all of them into that Trinity connection, that mind, body, spirit connection, that place. It's
Yep.
all, there's no separation, right? So when I judge Scott for drinking, it's like, oh shit, like that's me actually. Like Scott is me. Like I hold the judgment within myself. That's why I judge him. And so actually acknowledging that to find more love for Scott, like Scott's doing whatever he needs to do to feel safe and comfortable. And I could also be a friend that's supportive to him. Like, hey, have you done your NAD patches? Or, hey, have you called Annie anytime soon? Or, hey, what's up with TJ? Have you sat with your coach lately? And then there's ways that we can, as a community, to support each other. This is where my brain is at, Annie. I don't know if I moved my work a little bit to being a lot more collaborative on a co-creating reality together. Is like, hey, how do I support all of us to do the things? Like how do I win? How do you win? How do we all win? And how can we negotiate reality together to make that happen? And that really does look like, hey, Annie, I see you're doing that thing again. Do you want to try some NAD? Or, hey, Annie, I have this therapist, or do you just want to talk about it? I'll just listen. How can I support you here to move forward in your life? And that's,
Love.
Go ahead. So I think
I was going to say love. I mean, there's nothing in the whole world that's better than love, right?
No.
It's so magical, this love. It's so magical. It's what has Scott and you creating these shows. It's just, you're generating love. You're generating community and connection, and you're helping us feel that is our medicine. That is the medicine. And something like NAD, which is better than the ER, for serious situations, but it doesn't change your habit. It won't change any habit. It'll only help with the physiological shift, right? But it'll make it super fast if you're in a hurry. You can do it.
That's the hardest part, the physiological shift, like the actual body stuff. Like that's the hard part. The neurochemical, like neural pathway thing. That's the hard part of changing the habit.
That's the part that drives the addictions. You can't get out of the loop. It's over and over and over. That's why designing your transformation so that you've got it timed right. Like we used to always just like leave them alone until day 5, and then chiropractic, massage, the counselor, the NLP, the tapping, everything comes in, and all of a sudden they explode into a new them, right? And so having life is like an art piece, figuring out the right chemistry and the right timing, but having some good medicine, having some new behaviors, new activity, new things, like when you guys created Saturday Night Alive or Friday night. I mean, these are really important medicine of our time. They're very important to stay connected and feel energy. Yeah.
I want to just acknowledge Nancy wrote, yes, we all want to feel connected.
Yeah.
And that's such a big part of this, is we do want to feel connected. And we do live in the illusion of separation, that we are separate from each other. And that's why if you take one of the things that I've done sometimes in my workshops is I'll have people make a list of their greatest moments of connection, or the greatest moments in life, and then the hardest moments in life. Almost all wonderful moments in life are when we feel really connected. We're making love with someone we love. We're in nature. We're having some form of beautiful connection. And our most difficult moments in life are when we feel separated. It's really primal. And so whatever we can do to create a consistent sense of connection, and that includes the human connection, and that's actually how
Straight Talk and Saturday Night Live were born. Was okay, we're all in this pandemic. How can we stay connected? Well, we're going to use the internet and Zoom webinars now. But it's also really important for each person to have their own spiritual practice, whatever it may be. And because I work a lot with people that are in crisis, my wife died 10 years ago. And since then, just a big part of my life is helping people when they get that diagnosis of what could be terminal cancer, or their husband gets that diagnosis. And I want to say, most people I work with are in pretty serious crises. The people who have a practice, any form of healthy spiritual practice, whether it's meditation, yoga, a martial art form, playing a musical instrument, even a religious a religious practice, those people, it's a lot easier to make it through the hard times than people that don't have a practice. So, it's like, it's a holistic part, but if you're going through a hard time, get the NAD patches, get support from coaches like Trish, TJ, love coaches. But also, if you've had a practice that works for you in the past, resume it. If you don't, find a practice that works. And I see Annie nodding her head, or Trish.
No, it's so important. Go ahead.
I want to read Mark's question because I also want to answer it.
I was thinking about that too.
If we're sensitive and empathic, and the world is a mess, aren't we destined in some way? Oh, hold on. Are we destined in some way to feel background distress? My heart breaks over and over every day when I see homeless people, especially when it's cold and raining. How do we find balance of compassion and self-protection? And I can't answer this question.
I wanted to say, I last night I was in Los Angeles with someone, and we were looking for a restaurant that was still open. So we went by a Denny's, and we walked in and it was 50 degrees. And we're like, oh my God, why are you so cold? They go, to keep the homeless people out, right? To keep the homeless people out. And I'm thinking, where are they supposed to go? I mean, when I was young, we stayed up, if we were on the road or something, we would go to the Denny's and have coffee all night long, right? And this breaks all of our hearts. And one thing I used to say, in fact, we were going to make t-shirts in our offices about service is the new drug, because I just can't find, besides having a practice, which I can't even begin to I agree with you so much, Scott, about having your own practice. So important, because it's a habit. It's a routine, and it generates dopamine and serotonin and all kinds of good chemistry, right? It's a new drug. And the other new drug is serving people, the making a difference. And one thing I learned from this homeless documentary once is that you don't have to give them money, but if you give them your love, you can give them money too. But I'm just saying, the thing that they need is to not be judged, is to be loved. So I always give them a gigantic smile when I pass by them, and they go, and put my hand on my heart and just give them love. And oh my God, that's what really, really makes them excited, So, and as far as balance go, I think that's what our whole lifetime achievement is finding balance, because we get so out of balance. We get out of balance with giving, we get out of balance with taking. Finding balance is, to me, one of the golden keys, is finding what balance feels like for us, because we're giving beings. We have to be giving. We have to be sharing love. That's our connection to each other, and if you're ever lonely on the holiday, you just got to go find a soup kitchen and serve, and you'll have a great Christmas or Thanksgiving,
Thank you.
Yeah.
A couple thoughts on this direction. And I'm noticing, I'm really appreciating that some really great comments coming in the chat box about how to manage, Mark's question. And so thank you, Mark, for that fantastic question. Paramahansa Yogananda, who is a very important spiritual teacher for me, and so for many of us, his guru taught him the simple prayer of maximum grace. When we're praying for someone, maximum grace. Because we never know, on a deeper soul level, if it is best for someone to heal from the cancer, if it is best for a couple to stay together or to divorce, if it is best to keep the job or lose the job, we never know, because we only have our limited human understanding of it all. But maximum grace for whatever our individual karma or challenges are, maximum grace for us as a people. And even with those homeless people, maximum grace. As you walk by them, maximum grace. And Yogananda's teacher taught him that actually only 5% of the time should you physically get involved. Now, 5% of the time, life is going to call upon you to physically get involved and support someone. But 95% of the time, maximum grace for their journey, for their path, for where they are. And that's a really a wonderful, wonderful thing that's helped me. Because I think, like most of us, I was born on Christmas Day. I've got a Messiah complex, a rescuer complex. I want to jump in and fix and save everybody, right? And it's really helped me, just maximum grace. And the last part about that is also the humility of it. Not to pray, please may she be healed. Please may their marriage last. I don't know what's best. I just think I know what's best. Maximum grace. There's a humility to caring, putting that heartfelt, loving desire for support for someone, but recognizing that divinity, life, knows what's truly best.
Amen.
Your answer. Can I take a stab at it? You know, what comes to me is something that I've been working on for a little while, is this idea that we have polarized feelings. Like we have created feelings that create polarities in our bodies. The Buddha says all life is suffering, right? That being, I feel, and this is my personal opinion, is that like being this beautiful, amazing, vast spirit and being in this human skin, which is kind of uncomfortable. Being a vast spirit in a tiny little body is kind of uncomfortable. And that we have sensation. So what I try to remember is that these feelings that I have labeled through a language that has created consensus reality is I've created a judgment on it based on the desire to feel these pleasurable feelings. Right. And so when I'm like, yeah, there is going to be distress because we are living. Right. And so when I'm seeing that, I'm holding that space and compassion, like, oh, there's degrees at the discomfort in which we feel. And I find myself just being with those people in that discomfort as them, like, oh, can I hold that discomfort without making it, like, without sending my judgment out to them? Like, yes, they are homeless and they're having this experience. I've been homeless before. I've lived in my car. I've never begged on the street, and I luckily had a car, but I can remember what it's like there. And so I drop into my body and I really just sit with them in that space. And I say hi and I humanize them. And I'm like, you know, like, you're there and I see you. And sometimes when I have the extra to give, I ask them, what do you need right now? Is it money? Is it drugs? Is it food? Like, what do you need in this current state that you're in that I can actually give you? Because I'm not judging them for where they're at. I'm not looking down upon them. I'm looking at them from this moment. Can I offer them sometimes I buy an extra wool jacket. Like if I have, I'll find stuff in thrift stores, or I'll find a jacket or something, and I'll actually offer these extra things. I'll buy extra and drop them off, or I'll volunteer my time, like Annie said. And, I know that we've had a lot of people on this show that when you start to step out of your own distress, which was a big piece of my addiction, is like, I'm so distressed that I have to feel more comfortable. Then when I stepped out of my own distress and started to kind of focus on another to make their lives more comfortable in the way they wanted. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to assume that I know what's right for them. then when I ask them like, hey, what do you need right now? And they're like, I don't need anything. Just leave me the fuck alone. Or maybe it's like, I'd love a meal, a hot meal right now. Or gosh, I really need a sleeping pad or a blanket, or, and that's the approach that I take, is that I give them the opportunity to tell me what they need. If I feel that pulled to call to action, then I ask them. And that's coming from a place of my fullness, right? Because giving out of emptiness creates resentment, and that is deeply unloving. That's an unloving action out of obligation and resentment. And so it's, who's just said, gosh, who was it that we were talking? Was it Marty? Marty Casey, just for a week ago, maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I don't know. Time is weird. That she was like, no, for her means needing and more overflow. That she says no when she needs more overflow to be able to give. And I was like, wow, that is a beautiful, beautiful concept to bring into the world. Like, I need more overflow to be able to give extensively to you. Right?
Beautiful.
So that is my answer to that question.
And as you talk about coming from the overflow and how important it is for us to fill ourselves so that we can give to others, I just want to remind people that there's a wonderful weekly online show called the Self-Love Show. And it's on every Thursday morning at 10 o'clock Pacific time. And it's hosted by Trish and her wonderful partner, Dawn Wright. And yeah, let's all, I love the Self-Love Show. I really do. And it's, again, we're building this global peace tribe. Really, it's like a little network, So we've got our Friday night show, our Saturday night show, but definitely make sure you catch the Thursday morning Self-Love Show. And Trish, before we end tonight, Trish, maybe you can pull up a little bit of information where people can find out more about that.
Lovely.
I'm really appreciating, by the way, so many wonderful comments in the chat box from everybody. And I so appreciate you. And there's a really lovely kind of community that's grown on Friday nights where we come together. And there's, I don't know, maybe 12 or 15 regulars and then different people that come on in. And so thank you, everybody, for being here. And I do want to let you know that, again, since this is the last Straight Talk, we are going to have a new Zoom room link for the Awakening World. So if you all get my emails, then no problem. You'll get an email with the new link. But if you don't get my emails for some reason, please put your email address in the chat box in the next few minutes, so I make sure that you get the information about the new Zoom room we will be using starting in January. And again, our new show is going to be called The Awakening World, all about relationships between each other and the earth. And we're going to be bringing you all the people that you see there. The Twin Rays are going to be with us on Friday, January 20th, I think it is. And we'll, have all the people that you've seen, plus a lot of wonderful new people. And so definitely we're looking forward to a beautiful new year of new shows and new programs, and love this community that we've created and that has kind of naturally, spontaneously created. So, thank you, Mark, and all of you, Percy, Nancy, Kathy, all of you that have been joining us on a regular basis. There's a lot more from TJ, but I think we're kind of wrapping up here. So I think the one thing that TJ and I were going to go into that we talked about next was all about managing shame. And so I want us to just kind of all address that a little bit. And then I will take us to TJ's website, because I do want to promote TJ a little bit. But I just want to acknowledge that the purpose of the spiritual practice, whatever it may be, is to remember our connection to divinity, our connection to life, our connection to whatever it is you like to call it, spirit, source, God, life, Jesus, whatever it is, nature. And that helps us to remember the truth that we all are spiritual beings having a human experience. And that's really, really, really important. Because I would say that almost all pain, emotional pain, either comes from separation or separation of connection to divinity. When we drop into a shame story, I'm not fill in the blank enough, right? I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not wealthy enough. Those shame stories are what create the pain. And then we try and alleviate that pain through substances. And then we feel guilty and ashamed because our substance use is fucking up our life or screwing up our relationship or our job or our, the way we're talking to our kids, whatever it is. And then we feel more shame. So we get out of that shame cycle through a combination of really cultivating that spiritual practice, whatever it may be, cultivating more connection with other human beings, healthy relationships, healthy friendships, people that really genuinely care about us and accept us for who we are. You know what's so beautiful about Trish is a very, very accepting person. And actually, I'll say that about Annie too. I've known Annie Annie, I think we've known each other for 20 years, something like that. I can remember going to Agape with you 20 years ago. And I just had a great interview with Reverend Michael that's going to be on tomorrow night's Saturday Night Live, by the way. And I spent an hour with Reverend Michael a couple of days ago with him talking all about his spiritual teachers. It was awesome. Anyway, both Annie and Trish are two of the least judgmental human beings I know. They both are genuinely compassionate, loving, accepting people. And so let's surround ourselves with non-judgmental friends. And let's practice. Let's notice, when are we being judgmental? And let's really make that a big shift in this new year. Because when we replace judgment with compassion, everything gets better.
Thank you.
All right. Final thought from each of you, and then I'll do a little bit of promotional things. Trish.
Well, I just want to add this last thing, that if you want to be compassionate and accepting to others, you can only do it from inside out. Your judgments and your feistiness literally live within your values within you. So when you judge another person, you're judging yourself, and that's yours to work out. So if you want to be compassionate and loving, it's a constant practice to come back to, where am I judging? Where am I using that same judgment as a value and that's the place of being radically accepting and compassionate. That's all I'll say. Have a good night.
Annie, what are your final thoughts?
A few days ago, this spiritual teacher gave this wisdom that has really been life-changing for me. And it's that if we realize that humility is the only way sometimes that the divine can get into us, through that ego and through that, all those thoughts and beliefs and all the shame and the blame and all the judgment and everything, that if we take every situation and we see it as an opportunity, that it's there to help us cultivate humility, that then now the divine is reaching into us because we're out of the way, we're surrendered. And I just love that concept. So no matter what's happening in my life, I see it as fuel for that surrendered, humble place, so that the magic can happen without me interfering with it.
Beautiful. Thank you, Annie.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to read a couple of last comments and actually respond. The way we're going to differentiate between the Friday Night Awakening world and Saturday Night Awakening world They're both still going to be similar formats. Friday night will be a few guests talking with Trish and myself, going deep in conversation, just like tonight. And Saturday night edition will still have music, sometimes magic, maybe fewer presenters, maybe instead of 5 or 6 presenters, more like 3 or 4, where we can go a little bit more in depth and more interaction between the presenters and the musicians as well. So, but there'll be similar formats, but picking a topic that we're going to deal with. And so that's how we're going to differentiate. And thank you again, everybody. Make sure you give me your email address in the chat box. I see that Mark and a couple of others have done that. So I'll make sure that you are going to get the new Zoom room. And then I do want to go ahead and take a look at TJ. So I really want to encourage everybody, go to tjwoodward.com. Go to tjwoodward.com and right off the bat, put your email address in there. And when you do that, he provides a really lovely, and I'm already on his list, but a lovely daily inspiration. And then if you're interested in what TJ has to offer, he's got some really wonderful courses. So I've already done that. You can take his online conscious being course, his online conscious recovery course, or his online conscious creation course, or you can take all 3 for only $99.99, $100. And if you go in and read, his online courses are great. And really, he's a wonderful, wonderful teacher, a wonderful coach. So I really encourage you to go to tjwoodward.com and check it out. And thank you, Eleanor Joyce. She writes, what an enlivening show tonight. Many thanks. Tina writes, thank you, you guys. I'm so grateful was able to get the last few beautiful words. And Nancy, we're going with the same name because we really want to emphasize that we are part of an awakening world. This is what's going on. And I want to acknowledge Trish came up with the title, Awakening World.
Great name.
It's a great name. And it's a reframe because it's a hard time out there. A lot of people are struggling. It's a challenging time for a lot of us. And it's because we're in a birth canal and the planet is awakening and we as human beings need to awaken. And awakening is not always easy. When we awaken, let's say as humanity, to the ways that we have been unsustainable in our environmental practices, as we awaken to climate change, as we awaken to the ways that we have not been responsible caretakers of the earth, it's uncomfortable, right? But we need to awaken in order to become the stewards of this world, in order to really take good care of each other. We need to awaken to the ways that we have prejudice, that we didn't realize we have prejudice. We need to awaken to the ways that we have practices that harm our bodies, right? We need to awaken to these things. And that's why on this show, we're doing environmental themes. We're doing how to be healthier, how to deal with addiction, how to deal with our prejudice, how to deal with social injustice, how to deal with these things so that we can awaken, not from a blamey, shamey, judgmental place, but recognizing that we are all part of an awakening world. So that's why we're doing that. All right. Thank you, everybody, so much. Join us tomorrow night for Saturday Night Live. It's going to be a great Saturday Night Live. What we did was we are bringing in almost all of our favorite spiritual teachers and having them talk about their influences. I'll bring up the poster for a moment. So the Twin Ray, Shakina and Sananda, Reverend Michael Beckwith, Andrew Harvey, Reverend Matthew Fox, Lynn Twist, Satyan and Suzanne Raja, all sharing who their spiritual teachers have been, who their influences have been, and how that impacted their lives. I'll give you one really quick, kind of cool example. Matthew Fox, who is beautiful, beautiful man. When he was a boy, he was fascinated with Abraham Lincoln and really appreciated how honest Abe Lincoln was. And he dedicated, no matter what, I am always going to be honest. Well, 30 years later, he got kicked out of the Catholic Church because he was honest that he could no longer tolerate the anti-same-sex view of the Vatican. And he started performing same-sex marriages, and the Vatican kicked him out. And I love that story because his influence as a boy, Abraham Lincoln, honesty, he stayed in that integrity. And even though it cost him, it is also something I really honor and respect about him. And so we're going to hear about all of those stories. And the stories from Reverend Michael Beckwith are amazing of his influences, including meeting Martin Luther King when he was 10 years old. So join us tomorrow night for Saturday Night Live. Trish, tell us about the Self-Love Show.
Yes. Oh, I had it pulled up. The Self-Love Show is every Thursday morning, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we have a new guest every week. Sometimes Dawn and I teach, depending on when we're inspired. But it's really an opportunity to get free tools for whatever you might be going through. And it always comes back to loving the self or loving in partnership more deeply. Can I share a screen?
Yes, you may.
Oh, okay, let me do that. Oh, I'm not good at this. This is not my strong suit. Sorry, hold on.
While she's doing that, the Self-Love Show has amazing guests, many of whom you've seen on this show or on Saturday Night Live. And Trish and her partner Dawn are really fun. They're just really, really fun people. And they do provide really wonderful wisdom. How you doing with share screen?
Got it.
Okay.
Well, I was like, I could send you to the Facebook page, but you guys can find me there. It's the Self-Love Show. And if you know where to find me, you can find it there. But this is also something that I'd like to share is there is so many videos here on self-love. Like, look at all these videos of really every topic that might be something that's alive for you. Maybe you're just like, I have an hour to, maybe I want to know what emotional self-compassion is, or one of our favorites, Michael Dyer, overcoming negative self-talk. We love Michael. Or maybe, what do you want to build an awesome world together? Or maybe you're like really in love with flower essences, or you're like, oh, Lola Pickett did an interview with them. Let's listen there. And it really is like a dynamic conversation. And then you get a tool that they take you through. And it's awesome. It's an awesome conversation. It's really beautiful. So you can look us up on YouTube at the Self-Love Show.
Beautiful. So go get self-love. Join us for Saturday Night Live. Go to NAD Concierge to get your patches. And remember, there's only 8 more shopping days until my birthday. And this year, we're really celebrating the true meaning of Christmas, Scott's birthday. And the best birthday gift ever is to go to these shows and to share what we're doing with your friends. Let people know about the Self-Love Show, about the Awakening World. Let people know what we're doing. That's what I want. That's what I want for my birthday this year, is to grow our audience, to reach more people. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Big love. And Anne, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Trish, I adore you. And good night, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.
Okay. Good night.